Hello everyone, I just wanted to give you a really quick overview of Microsoft Forms and how I think they've been used and how you can use them. Just because we've been getting a lot of interest in exactly this topic, I thought it might just be easier for me to make a little bit of a web tutorial. So the big thing, obviously, Microsoft Forms is connected to our GSCS accounts. The easiest way to get to those is through the portal. So I might have a few more icons than you just because of different things I'm involved with, but everybody, including students, will have Office 365 for schools. Again, you can log into this anywhere that you have internet connectivity. In there, again, you're going to have many different things, but one of these should be Microsoft Forms right there. And once you log into Forms, once you click into Forms, it's going to show you the different areas. So I'm just going to kind of go through a few different things and what that actually does. So the one thing I don't love about Microsoft Forms is it makes everything look huge. For example, all my different quizzes. This is kind of different if you're used to using Google Forms. Google Forms provides a different view, which I kind of prefer, but this will be quite easy to use. For the first area here, new form versus new quiz. What is the difference? Well, you can actually create a quiz, and I would say that's more for a classroom teacher than it would be for an office coordinator, something like that. So something to consider. If you did a quiz, you can essentially create like a question and answer bank that will grade itself. So for example, a high school English teacher could do a chapter test on a book they've read, and the students could fill out the questions. It would primarily have to be like multiple choice, that sort of thing, and then it would grade it. So it becomes kind of an assessment tool for teachers. So depending on your role, you may or may not ever use that. But I would also say that anytime you see three dots, you see them up here, you'll see them on pretty much all the forms, as well as many places within this video, you'll see these three dots. Always click on them because the three dots means, hey, there's something more here, more options. So there's education resources. So we don't need to get into that right now, but let's take a look at the top ones. Feedback, if I want to give Microsoft feedback, great. If I need help, there you go. You can see I'm signed in. If you need to sign out, there you are. Typically, most people will just create a new form depending on what you're doing. You'll see here I've done a lot of testing. Intro to Forms, I think, might be the one I was last using to show off kind of what you can do. What's really interesting here as well is the Shared With Me area, as well as the group form. So if we click on Shared With Me, anytime somebody adds your email to a form or shares it with you, it'll be accessible here, which is super handy because what you might find is if somebody sent me an email to help them with a form 3 months ago, I may not remember who sent that to me. I may not remember where it is, but it's in my Shared With Me folder because I added my email to it. Just like a OneNote notebook or a OneDrive document, that person adding my name to it has kind of linked it to me. Also, for example, if I wanted to get rid of this, I could unpin it, or I could tell the person to remove me, but it's generally not a problem. The group forms, I've rarely seen this used. Essentially, it's if you or a group of people would like to create a form together, but there's different ways of doing just that. So I would suggest don't even worry about that. Typically either stick with my forms or the Shared With Me forms. So let's just jump into one that I've created before, and I'll give you a little bit of a rundown. Some of you might say, hey, what about these? And that's just what you can switch in between them. Typically, some of these quite common. All apps, I very rarely had anybody go into that as well. So don't worry about that too much. But the first thing, just starting from the top, you're in Forms. If you click on Forms, it'll go back to that. You'll see that my order has changed based on the last one I've used. So that's kind of handy. If we go to Preview, once you actually have a form created, you can hit Preview, and two really cool things here. It shows the end user perspective. So if I'm sending this home to parents, if I'm sending this to my class, it's a really good idea to click on the preview just to see what it looks like for them. That looks good to me. The other thing is people don't realize how many times people will view something on a mobile device. So this can be very, very handy. For example, if I had a question that had a ton of text, you might have to scroll through the entire page before you can actually see the entire question. So that might not be ideal. So always kind of think, is this something, for example, if it's something that's going home with two parents or directly to parents through the email system, generally, I would say probably 75% or more are going to access it on a personal device as opposed to a computer. So keeping that in mind will also be a good idea for how you design questions, things like that. Just going back, we'll get you out of that view. That was the preview. The theme is basically colors, pictures. There's a lot of really cool ones. What I find too is you can add just a color if you like, or you can add a picture. So that I just Googled that image and added. So customize themes. If I wanted, I can just put a hex code. Some people might know that every color has a hex code. You can actually just Google hex code colors and you can find a ton of different ones. I can add new images, anything you like, just like that. For my purposes here, I'm just going to leave it with that one. You can change that at any point in time. It doesn't really do anything. Again, the nice thing about Microsoft Forms is it saves automatically. It's all in the cloud. If my computer blew up right now, everything would be on the cloud. I wouldn't have lost anything. Just looking at this is kind of the back end view. This is the owner's view. So you can see here I have access to my questions, but not only that, my responses. And we'll go over that as well. Really also important at the top here is the share button. This is so critical. Please, 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 if you learn nothing else, make sure you learn and pay attention to this. So sending and collecting responses. Very important here to know the difference of what you can and cannot do. So anyone with the link can respond. By default, I would almost make that a requirement. The contrast is only people in my organization can respond. So anybody in GSCS will have a GSCS Microsoft 365 account. It will prompt them to log in. So for example, if you're on your home phone or your cell phone and you're trying to complete a form that an administrator has asked you to do, you click on the email link out of an email and it will pop up saying please log into Microsoft 365. This is where people typically get confused. Some people will remember, oh, which 365 is it? Is it my home account? Is it my work account? Is it my University of Saskatchewan account? So it avoids complication. Just have anybody with the link can respond. So in that same scenario, if I clicked on the link out of an email from an administrator, if I have this selected to anybody with a link can respond, it will just open up and I don't lose people. The other thing is I've seen this happen a lot where it's just automatically set by default. I think the default is only people in my organization, and that can be very, very confusing, especially if you send it home and then it's going to prompt a parent to log in. And technically, we are on pace to have parent login, like parent accounts, so that they can do things like log into create parent-teacher interviews, things like that. That will be a thing in our division later on, but I would not. You'll get more phone calls and more headaches because of this than anything else. So typically, anybody with the link can respond. And I'm actually going to show you a little tip on how to test these things. But first I want to show you these different areas. So a link, that's the link symbol, that's just a direct link. You can copy it, it'll say perfect, now you can paste it. A QR code, these can be relevant, but generally I find these are rarely used. If I'm a teacher, I might want to put a form at the end of different assignments, and kids will typically, that have access to a device or cell phone, might just get into the habit of scanning these wherever they see them. So that could be very helpful. But it totally depends on your scenario, what you're trying to do. The third one is code. So if you're into coding and you create websites and things like that, this might make sense. To 98% of people, they have no idea what this is. So I would say stay away from it. The cool thing about that email link is it pops up your preferred email address. So right here, what I could do is I could type in specific teachers' names. I know one limiting factor is the way that the emails are sent. So for example, if you're at Holy Cross, if you typed in all Holy Cross staff. I've heard that it will not actually send to all Holy Cross staff, because if you think about it, there's subgroups under that all Holy Cross staff. There's all Holy Cross teachers, all Holy Cross support staff. There's different subgroups under that. So the subgroups, you want to be able to email to the subgroup and not the overall group. I don't know why, but I've heard that this is a limitation. The tried and true method would be to type in people's emails individually. But if you are typing or sending through the message manager system through the schools automatically, that wouldn't be as relevant. You'd most likely just want to click on the link. So clicking on the link, and actually where I was saying that we kind of have an easy way to test this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on my Office forms, just to make sure that link is copied. I'm going to go to Chrome browser, and in Chrome browser, it has a neat little trick. I'm just going to move this down so you can see it. There's 3 little dots on a Chrome browser, and Chrome is made by Google, so it kind of all works. There is an incognito window. So what the incognito window does is it basically doesn't remember that you're from GSCS. It doesn't remember that you're logged in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste that link right there and hit enter. Okay, there we go. So it opened up. So that's perfect. Now watch what happens when I click on the other version. So this is any person in my organization. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to go back to Chrome. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to paste it in, and it should prompt us to log in. There we go. So this is what a parent would see if we didn't change it. And then this looks generic. This has nothing to do with our division, right? So if a person works in enterprise, or if they've generally businesses use these often, or any U of S person would be able to log in. So if they log in with a U of S account, it won't allow them to access it. So just keep that in mind. This can cause a ton of concerns. So right there, by testing it, I know that it will not work for my intended purpose. If it's going to a staff member, then yes, that could be logged in. If you really need them to log into their GSCS account, there are scenarios in which that could work. You might want to consider that, but very, very, very important, that one. The other thing, 2 of these. So for example, let's say I have an awesome template and it might work in another school. What I'm going to do is I might get the link to duplicate. So anyone with this link here can duplicate. And that basically means that, say this form is awesome. It might be like a great intake form for an elementary school, and it might be specific to my school, but let's say, hey, another school down the road wants to use a version of it. What I could do is I can copy and paste this link into an email and send it to somebody, and it'll say, hey, you now have access to take a look at this form. And it won't let them change your form. It will allow them to make a copy of it for themselves, which is really, really handy when you want to share a good form. This link to collaborate. This is where, let's say you have a good form and you need to make it with another person. Collaborating allows them access to your form, and they will have edit ability. So if you're not careful, that person can actually destroy your form. So really use this for a very intended purpose. And again, you can see here, there's a couple different options. Users within O365 work or school account can view and edit, or only people in my organization. So I think both of those will work, but generally you just kind of want to think about what you're doing there. Make sure you have the correct link, etc. When you click on the 3 dots, branching, it's more complex, and I'll touch on that, but I won't really go into it too much because I've never seen it really used super well, and I don't think you have to use it. It provides an extra element, but it's not the end all be all. Settings. So here again, it's kind of redundant. Who can fill out this form? Well, anybody with the link. Or, for example, like, hey, I want to record the name. I'm trying to click on it right now, but it's not actually letting me. That feature is only available if I have only people in my organization. So again, there's pros and cons to making people log in. Recording name automatically, 1 response per person. Those are great things. But I can actually eliminate the record name by just making a question saying, what is your name? And then that's redundant. Although the person could just lie and say, my name is this person, when it's not. But again, very rarely would you ever need to create a form where that would be applicable. One response per person. If this is, for example, like say you're in high school and you need teachers or admin to vote on valedictorian or an award, you might only want to allow one response per person. So this will force them to log in with their GSCS credentials in order to record. And if I try to log in again, it will tell me, it checks basically, has anybody with my email submitted already? And if it has, it won't let you. So again, you have to think really hard about the reason behind those two choices. Accepting responses. So for example, let's say this form is due Friday, and after that, I do not want any more responses. So I can go in and just click accept responses, and this will actually be a message that they'll see. So let's say my due date is Friday at 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock comes and I can actually turn this off manually. I'll show you how to do this automatically as well. But this is the message that people would see. So I would just write like, sorry, too late. And then, or come see me in person. Something like that. Or you can do a start date. Let's just say, hey, I'm making this form in a week. So I could set this is going to be opened up at a certain date and specifically an end date. So I don't need to come in Friday at 1 o'clock and close it. Shuffling questions, it may or may not be applicable. If this were a test, shuffling questions could be good because I would be able to cheat next to the person beside me. But again, for somebody wanting basic information, that might not be super important. The customized thank you is nice. So whenever you click submit, it's nice to know that your form actually got submitted. Even though like as soon as you click it, we know we're good, but people like to have that reassurance. So you click your response was submitted, or like more information like you will hear back from me next Monday. There you go. Boom. Something like that. Send email receipt to respondents. Again, I think this is a little bit overkill. And right now, actually, I can't click on it. And again, that is because I need to have this setting. So not all settings work with all settings. So now that I've changed it to people in my organization, I can send email receipts to the respondents. Because if you think about it, if we don't, it doesn't actually record their email address. And I could technically have a question, what is your email address? But then I would have to do this manually, where this is automatic. Get email notification of each response can be super helpful or super annoying depending on the size of your form. For example, I was planning a PD, and I really needed to know who was going to come to my PD at what time, and I really need to follow it because I thought there might have been a really big uptake, but I wasn't sure. So I wanted those emails. I was looking for about 30 people, so I was checking every single time I got an email. So it tells you an email, says, I can't remember if it says like so-and-so has completed your form, but basically you get an email saying, hey, somebody submitted or has completed your form, and it gives you a link to the responses. So that can be very helpful, but if you think about it, if I create a form that's going to go out to 1,000 kids, you'll get 1,000 emails. So think about that really hard again. But I would say generally, more often than not, just anybody with the link will get you the best of what you're looking for. So I can close that by clicking on that again. Let's take a look again at the questions. Your title, add whatever title you want. If you click on that, you can actually add pictures. There's a picture button. Maybe I kind of hate Bing, but because it's a Microsoft product, it uses Bing. So there you go. Maybe I want to have that as well. And what that's going to do, and oh, something went wrong. Oh, I've never had that happen. It is a Microsoft product though. Very peculiar. So let's try that again. Oh, looks good there. So again, you can add images. If I click on that again, enter your description. Please complete by tomorrow. You can add more information. And again, you can always preview it, see what it looks like. There's my image, there's my title, there's my additional information there. If you want to add questions, these are just all the different types of questions you can add. Please note that you do not need to add every type of question, and only certain questions are relevant depending on what you want to do. Most common, multiple choice, short answer. So let's take a look at those. Multiple choice. Again, you have multiple choice. You can add yes, no, maybe, other. If you want to add more options, you click add more options. If there are multiple answers that are correct, great. If you want something to be required, very important. So if you have a question like, would you like, or for example, like, do you think this is a good idea or not? And if you really need to know a yes or no, put required. But if it's something that you don't need an answer for, then leave that off. Basically, if a person goes through and doesn't answer a question, it will force them to go back before they can submit it. So I would say required. I typically have all my questions required, because if it's not a question that I think is important, then why am I asking it in the first place, right? Again, the 3 dots means there's more information. Drop down, subtitle, shuffle. Again, I might not actually shuffle. I don't think that's a good idea. I like the drop down, and I'll show you what that looks like. If I preview it, so it looks like the drop down like that. So it saves a little space. It's a little bit neater. Again, so many options here. Here is an area where you can just type in. So long versus short answer. Right now it's a long answer, and again, it doesn't really look like that there's a lot of room, but I'll show you the difference in the preview. So you can see here there's quite a bit of room versus if we change this to a short answer, it looks a little bit different. I think this one is actually long, so I'll show you the difference between the two. Yeah. So, and you might not think, hey, does that actually matter? If you have one versus the other, people will write depending on how much space they have. So I guarantee, no matter what this question is, people are going to write more in this one because they have more area to write. So if you want to read it, great. But if you just need short information, put this short amount of information. Where I've actually run into a problem that I didn't even think about was where I asked students to write kind of a paragraph sentence. And so they would get typing, and then as they type, they kind of lose sight of what they first typed. So then you get them repeating sentences, things like that. So again, think about what type of question you're asking, and that will kind of determine long, short, required. Restrictions. So you'll notice here that clicking on those 3 dots will give you different things depending on what the question is. Here is a scale. So you can change different symbols, numbers, levels, required or not. Let's click on this. You can label them. So you can label like 1 star, no good, 5 star, super good, things like that. And again, I like to preview it. There you go, no good, super good. Fills it in right like that. Awesome. Add time and date. I actually really love this one. So perfect format, month, day, year, required, awesome. Let's take a look at that preview. Right here, so if they click on it, it actually gives them the calendar, which I love. 1 second. So it gives them the calendar, which I really love. So it puts it in the correct format, because I guarantee if you ask somebody to write that format, probably half of them would get it wrong. And that can be very important to your job. You can also do ranking, so you can kind of move things up and down, like here's our 5 choices, which order would you put them in from least to worse? There's Likert scales, other scales as well. Again, you'll rarely ever move past the multiple choice, short and long answer, maybe something like that, but just to show you that they're all there. Let's say, hey, I really wanted this question 7 to be underneath. You can click on it and then just move it up or down based on those arrows. If you want to get rid of it, hit the garbage can. If you want to duplicate it, for example, let's say I have 4 questions that are relatively the same. I'll click duplicate, and so now we have 7 and 8, and it's the same thing. And I can just change my question, something like that, right? Okay, so once I send it out, remember, like let's say I'm done my questions, everything looks good. I'm going to hit share. Made sure that anyone with the link can respond. I'm going to click the link. I'm going to copy, and that's what I would send home to parents, or I would send to somebody. Again, I would probably test it by taking it to a different browser using that incognito mode. Remember that incognito mode is found in Google Chrome. And that Google Chrome, again, I can just incognito window, paste, test, always test. I've had many emails saying, hey, could you test to make sure this form works? Or I've even had where somebody has said they've sent it to another person in their school and it's not working. And honestly, that is user error. That's not anything wrong with your form. Somebody either is sharing an account with their family, or they're on a personal device, or for other reasons. It's not a form problem. It's an end user problem. Okay, so let's pretend we've shared it. Theoretically, we'll get our responses. So I'll show you one I've actually completed, and you can kind of get some information from that. So 0 responses, average time to complete. Technically, it's still active. If I stopped, I can change that active, meaning it's closed. I would say the best thing about forms is that you can open it in Excel. So if I click, I'm actually just going to go to a different form, which I should have some responses. I did some fake ones here, so I'll use one of those. 7 responses. So again, this was actually a lunch order. There you go. I just did some fake ones. Any allergies? So again, if I'm ordering food, a question like this, do you have any allergies? Yes or no? So yes, 4 people. Oh my. But this doesn't tell me who those people are. So even though that this is a good representation, it does nothing to help me not kill those people with orders. Okay, really important. So this gives you a really good overview. That's awesome. Perfect, 35 seconds. Now let's open it in Excel. So what it's going to do is it's going to download my spreadsheet, in which I'm going to open. And the cool thing about this is it can actually show you some variables. So let's say here's all my food. I want to organize it based on numbers, so I can do that. Many more people are probably super familiar with Microsoft as opposed to just kind of the Excel version as opposed to the online version. You can see here that I actually faked all of these, my email address, because it was tied to the division. It shows my name and my email, even though I put other people's names in there, so that could be good or bad. Again, I'm not going to save it. Another way you could do is you can review the results one by one. So this might be more helpful. Oh, okay, this person has a peanut allergy. Oh, that's me. There we go. So I can do it that way. I can do it one by one. And you can see there the names change. So this is exactly how they filled it out. So you have 3 different ways to view the same information. So we can view it as like a general indicator like this, and this could be good like did you find the PD was good or bad? So if it was like yes or no, well, that's half and half, so that's something maybe I need to address, something like that, right? Or if I need to find out how many people want to order pizza that's pepperoni versus ham pineapple, maybe opening an Excel and organizing it by the topping could be more relevant, right? So that could be super important that way. What else can I tell you? I believe that is darn near everything. I think that's everything really you need to know by going through it. I'll show you what branching does, but I would say stay away from branching. You can tell that it's branching because it uses this fun little symbol. And if I clicked up here and clicked on branching, it then says, okay, what do you want to do? So it'll say after they've answered question 1, it'll go to question 2. And for example, I made this form with, do you have any food allergies? So if they click yes, it's going to go to 3, tell me about your allergy. If they click no, it's going to go to 4, and it's going to bypass question 3. So again, overkill, you don't need to do it. Would this form work if that weren't there? Absolutely. But I'll show you what it looks like in practicality when they preview it. So right now, that you can put in your name, and as soon as you hit yes, then you get number 3. If I hit no, it changes number 3 to what would you like to eat, which is actually question 4 on my page. Like I said, overkill, you don't need to use it, but that should be absolutely everything you could possibly imagine. Okay, so that is my super brief overview, but I think it pretty much covers everything. Again, let's say I've had this happen. Let's say you want another version of this form. All you would do is click on the 3 dots. You can copy it, you can delete it. So let's say untitled form, I want to get rid of that one. So we're going to just click delete. Continue. There we go. Always make sure your forms are named really well. That will help you out as you move forward. And that should be absolutely everything. If you need any help with that, please feel free to contact me, and we should be good. Thanks.